Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode from the RPA Vanguard channel. My name is Andy Menon. In this video, we are going to be talking about implementing a solutions accelerator. So let's get started. All right. So the solutions accelerators came into prominence, I think, sometime last year, and we have been looking at several of the solution accelerator templates as and when we have time. But I always wanted to implement a solutions accelerator end to end, right? There was no specific agenda, but I just wanted to understand what are the experiences that I'm going to be going through if I took one of these solutions accelerators and implemented them end to end, right? Which brings us to the whole objective of this video or a series of these videos, because I believe that this cannot be a single video. It has to be, in multiple pieces, given how wide this subject is. Those who are watching this video can learn many things from this. I'm sharing my experiences unbiased. If you are a seasoned solutions architect, then you probably don't have much to learn from this. But if you are, fairly familiar with the different, technology stacks of UiPath, or the different, technology features of UiPath, to be correct, and you would want to implement an end-to-end solution, then you might want to understand what it takes to take something like a solutions accelerator and implement it for your own projects, right? And the other thing that I would just want to emphasize is that at this point in your journey, you might be a developer or a senior developer or a lead developer, but there would come a point in time where you might be a solutions architect, right? And in which case, going through the experience of working with a solutions accelerator will kind of give you a fair idea of where you stand when it comes to the mentality of being a solutions architect, right? So going through that process of a solutions accelerator will give you that experience upfront. And I cannot give you that experience, or I cannot tell you what that experience is, unless I have implemented a solution accelerator template myself, right? And the rest of the video is going to talk to you about several different kinds of experiences that I went through. Some of them will have to do with technical detail. Some of them will have to do about what I saw in the documentation. Some of them have to do about some of the mistakes that I made and what I would do different if I implemented it once again, right? So with that, let's take a look at the solution accelerator that I implemented end to end. So I went through the UiPath marketplace and I looked through many number of solution accelerators, and I thought that I'll take on the one that is the most simple in terms of the number of components in it. Remember, there's a difference. It might have a less number of components, but the business logic and the problem to solve might be complex, right? So let that not fool you, because I went through the process of implementing the solution accelerator that you see on the screen, and I learned a lot of good lessons. And therefore, one of the valuable lessons that I learned is, okay, if this is just an Excel template data extractor, let us not think that it is very simple. And therefore, when I started, I thought that I'm taking on the simplest of the solution accelerators, right? But it's a good thing that I took this up, because I learned a lot from this. And the name of the accelerator, as you see here, is it has to do with handling data that is captured as part of manufacturing sustainability, right? And what that means is this particular data that is captured has to do with emissions, and then energy and waste. What UiPath has done is they have packaged the data template and all the components that are required for you to implement this Solutions Accelerator in a neat little package, right? And it's up to us to implement this, right? So this is the Solutions Accelerator I got started with, and I downloaded this. And when I extracted the files, this is what you can expect. And there is this Excel template data extractor, and it has the folder -dev, and it has many number of folders. And the main folders are the processes, the libraries, and very important, documentation, right? This is where, I want to kind of emphasize, what I learned from the documentation part of a Solutions Accelerator. And I just want to share with you, the kind of things that you can learn in one place, right? So let's take a look at that next. So one of the great things about going through a Solution Accelerator implementation is what I understood that as soon as I stepped into it, is that there are so many pieces or so many concepts that you can learn about in one place, right? Let's look at some of the UiPath journey that we are familiar with, right? We got started with building simple automations, and then we probably learned how to automate or build dispatcher and performer queue processes. Then we learned about data service. We also learned about building libraries. But in a Solutions Accelerator, all of that information about the different concepts that you've learned, including the robotic enterprise framework, they're all sitting in one place, right? And this is one of the greatest advantages, because all of that information repository is there in a Solutions Accelerator template, at least in the one that I've downloaded, right? So I go into the documentations folder, and if you look at it, there is this original document by UiPath. It's technical. It's called the name of the Solutions Accelerator - the technical documentation, right? And what I did is I saved it differently, and with a different name. And here you can see it has got something called interpreted. Now, what that means is that I read through this documentation, spent some time on it, and then I identified some of the key areas that that are of interest, that I think are of importance, and I highlighted them and I saved this document, right? And if I open that document here, you can see that I have many number of highlights and comments that I have saved in this document. And the name of this document is tagged as interpreted, which means that it is my personal copy of this document. And this is where another experience that you're going to go through is, what is your predisposition to be a solutions architect, right? Do you have the patience and the time and the fortitude to go through the documentation, understand what that Solution Accelerator template is about, and then go about implementing it? Because you see, UiPath has done most of the work to package all the components here. But even then, if you want to implement something, you have to understand what that Solution Accelerator template is about. If you don't understand it, then you don't get to implement it, or you will struggle during the implementation, right? And therefore, going through the documentation as a solutions architect is very, very important, right? So that is why I went through some, this whole document. I spent a few days reading through it. I mean, I didn't read all of it in one go. When I found time, I read through it. And here are some of the on the right, you will see some of the highlights and some of the comments I've made, which are important to understand. And if you look at the first comment that was of interest to me, if I bring that up, it says not as something that is plug and play. Very important. Just because you have a solution accelerator template does not mean that you simply take it, plug and play, and it's going to work. Unless the data you're gathering is exactly matching with the example that UiPath has included in this solution accelerator template. Regardless, it is not a plug and play solution. Therefore, it's very important for us to understand, right, what the solution accelerator template is about, right? The other comment that you will see again is the code in the solution is not meant to be used as is, right? And then there are several concepts that you can learn just from this documentation. Here is another principle, right? Separation of concerns, right? When you design a solution, you should have clear separation of the UI layer, the logic layer, and the data layer, right? And how you can build applications or implement solutions that take these principles into consideration, right? Similarly, this is another folder that they have linked here, and this goes to that documentation folder that I was talking about. And there are several documents. We'll go through at least a couple of them, but you can see that they have linked these documents from within this main piece of documentation. So that's why I highlighted it, because I would need to find reference to that. And then one of the very important parts of this documentation is the data diagram. Very important to understand what this solution accelerator template does. And based on how much of it you understand, implementing your own use case becomes that much easier, right? And in my case, it definitely did, because I'm going to show you that the data set that I use to implement the solution accelerator template is completely different. It's similar, but different, right? So if you click on this link here, it will load the sustainability data diagram. And you can see that there is a full diagram, the entity diagram on what this template is about, what is the data about. And then if you come back into this, into the main documentation, if you come back to this, from here on, you will see the full description of each of these entities that runs to the rest of this main document, right? So each entity, what does it do, right? And how is it related to the core entities, that is actually the data that's captured, right? We'll come to this later when we talk about the data service side of things. But for now, it's very, very important to understand this primary document, right? And if you can make some highlights, if you can make some notes, then you probably have done it once, and then you can come back to this document to kind of look through those principles, to look through those those techniques and the recommendations that are used probably in every solution accelerator, right? So this is the number one great experience I had reading through this, and I was very thankful for having read through this. The second document that's important, like I told you, if you go back to the attached documents folder, if you go into the related documents, there is a lot of good stuff in here. One of the first things is that the sustainability data diagram. And along with the data diagram, there is a template, which is nothing but a small sample of data that's captured, that explains, that makes it easier for you to understand what the data set is. But there are other great documents here. The one that you see here is, of course, the documentation on RE framework. So if you have used RE framework for a long time, but you want to go back and look into the documentation to refresh your memory, that's another great stop, right? You could go through that. The other document of interest that I found is the reusable components methodology, right? So this is another great document, and I did the same thing. I read through this and I did my own interpretation of this, and I made some notes. So let's take a look at that document next. Okay, so if I start with the reusables components methodology, it will take me to this PDF. And this is really, really detailed and has a lot of stuff in it. And I would like to, kind of again point to you some of the things that I learned from this and refresh my memory on this. And then some of the things aligned with what I was already doing. Some of the things I had to kind of sit and think through, but a lot of it was phenomenal information. And unless you read through it, I don't think that you're going to do full justice to really, really understanding what this Solution Accelerator template is doing, because most of the components that are packaged into this Solutions Accelerator is based on this documentation, right? So understanding the documentation versus the physical assets or the physical components of the accelerator template, right, kind of goes hand in hand. Some of the things that I learned, I'll go through them very quickly. Very important, right? Reusability means you try to build every layer of your solution as something that can be reused, and that can be kind of implemented or updated with minimal effort. And important lesson to learn is do not mix different layers of the application together, right? Mixing the UI layer with the logic layer and mixing the logic layer with the data layer, not a good thing, right? The other important concept is the single responsibility principle. Again, what this has to do with how you're actually building your components. A very important comment here. If you build a XAML flow, then that file should do one and only one thing, right? And you should try to stick very close to this principle as much as possible, right? Sometimes it might not be possible, but again, stick to this as closely as possible. And then it talks about the high cohesion principle, right? That means all actions associated with that application must be put in the same bucket, right? In the same module. Low coupling means you should be able to attach and detach different layers with ease without having to impact the entire application, right? And there must be minimum impact or no impact at all between layers when one of the layers is in some way needs to be changed or altered, right? And then this is something that if you are doing something with the UI layer, this is a section of documentation that you might have to go through. It has a lot of detail about object repository. Now, I have not built object repositories for a while now, but it was a great refresher for me to go through once again, right? And read through it. But that said, I also ran into some of the glitches in the documentation. It's not exactly a glitch. It is, let's say, it's a phase in time, and the documentation is out of phase with the evolving UiPath technology stack. For example, here, if you look at this is highlighted in red, or a near red color, whatever that is. You see that it talks about using the modern design experience. And then it talks about the instructions to go through how to switch between modern design and classic design. If you look at these screenshots, they are out of phase, because if you open UiPath Studio 2024, you will not find these things matching, right? Things have changed, right? To switch between modern and classic design, those things have changed. And if you go to the documentation, you can see that you can use classic activities in the modern design experience, and you can actually set those settings in Studio. And then this is about libraries. This is really awesome because I would recommend you read through this because it will impact how you understand the libraries that have been packaged in this Solution Accelerator, right? I think if you understand this once, then going through any other Solution Accelerator is going to be that much easier. And then I did see some issues again in the documentation. For example, if I click on this, the bullets seem to be out of whack. There is no 4C anywhere here, 4.c. And actually, I made a comment that where is 4.c? And I did report this as a feedback. And the other important item to note here is that when we are, building components, use the Pascal case standard and not the, regular in underscore out underscore IO underscore prefix designs, because your library can be used by other team members, or if you're publishing a library for public consumption, then these will look really, really strange and will not be very comforting to those who are going to use it. And therefore, using Pascal case standard will be a great way of actually implementing your libraries. And you will see that throughout the Solution Accelerator when you look through the libraries and look through the different components. There is another problem that I found here, and you can see that this can leave you confused. If you recall, if you have used the classic library, for example, let's say Excel, right? If you use the Excel scope activity, right, in the classic experience, you can get a reference back to the workbook object, right? And you can take that workbook object and pass it to every other flow that needs to work on that Excel, right? I have done that myself when implementing several RE framework projects. So I open the Excel object in the init state. I capture the Excel workbook reference, and then that Excel workbook reference is passed to every other flow in the process state that is actually operating on that Excel, right? So if it has to update a row in that Excel, then I do not again give it the path to that Excel document, but I give the reference of that Excel object. Now, this instruction here leaves you a bit confused because I don't know how to do that in a modern activity. If you draw an Excel, use Excel activity scope, Excel activity, there is no reference that is returned back to you for that Excel document that you can pass to different workflows, right? So this might have to be done in classic mode. And that is why I told you, if you look at the settings of the UiPath Studio, you can actually include classic activities in your modern experience and then use those classic activities to do some of the things that have been defined here, right? And the other important thing that I learned specifically as a valuable lesson, for classic design experience, do not pass in selectors as arguments, which makes sense, right? Don't pass in the selector, but pass a reference to that application. So a very important document, very detailed, and I would recommend spending some time on this. And if you, if you can give your time, understand this, the journey of implementing a solutions accelerator becomes that much more easier. So I'm going to wrap up this video at this point, because I think a lot of information has been covered and a lot of detail has been kind of conveyed. In the next video, I'm going to talk about my version of the implementation of this Solutions Accelerator. And we'll go through this sustainability data diagram. And I'm going to walk you through what I understood from this and how I took, the data set that I had and then implemented something similar, right? So that's all for this video. And I hope you have learned something new. And I hope that, you take a crack at implementing your own Solutions Accelerator. And I'll see you next time. Thank you. Talk to you soon.